Traveling the Vortex.
Still haven't joined the Doctor as they travel the Vortex, but we have arrived at episode 464. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
We're almost around our little video link in the right order. Almost.
Oh,
Almost.
Greg's in my seat.
Good. How you guys been?
pretty good.
Are you still social distancing?
I'm back at work.
Still being
So
safe? You
not
are back
as-
finally.
I am back at work finally. This was the end of my second week.
How's it gone?
It's been okay. It's kind of a rougher transition than I thought it would be, but
Right.
it's finding a new normal in this kind of craziness, especially the additional craziness since we test for the disease that everyone's so afraid of.
Right, exactly. I was going to say, of
it's-
all of us now, you're probably the most busy.
Yeah, well, and easing back into it and finding a rhythm because everyone kind of got used to me not being there. So it's kind of it's been a little hit and miss. Sometimes I'm bored, sometimes I'm super busy. So it kind of just depends. It also depends on how many samples we get because there's a lot coming in.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, you guys do anything fun this week?
I am a grandfather.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Again,
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Was that Cody's
Yes.
third? Okay.
How long ago was their second?
Not very.
Not very long ago.
That's what I thought.
We're as soon as it is safe to do so, we're having Sam come over to install the boot. We're gonna lock her up so that say no more. Cody's still convinced he wants a boy, and we're like, no, three girls is enough.
I don't think he has it.
He's
got it in him.
Yeah, he's not gonna get. He's not gonna get there.
I've tried arguing that point. It's like, dude, genetics are against you. Your pocketbook is against you. Stop now.
I've been still reading a lot. I finished up
Oh,
the
did you?
Thrawn trilogy, and 2 was kind of It was good, but there wasn't a lot of plot there because it's split in 2 sections, one past, one present. But the third one I thought I really enjoyed quite a bit.
I finished Rebels. I was about 4 episodes away that I had just been setting on and hadn't watched, and so I finally sat down and watched those because I had started watching Clone War, the last season of Clone Wars, and I thought, oh, probably ought to finish these in order. So I went back and finished Rebels, and then I'm only 4 episodes away from finishing Clone Wars, which Sean, I saw you finished.
The best.
See,
I
I am doing it in order, so I couldn't start Rebels until I finished.
And of course, it wouldn't be Star Wars if it didn't have a few contradictions in it, but you gotta have to let that slide.
I
Yeah.
think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, even the creators are saying, don't get worked up over the contradictions. Anything else big and groundbreaking anybody did?
I finished Star Trek Discovery, season 2.
Yeah. How's that going?
For somebody who was so anti-Discovery after season 1, it grew on me quite a bit. It gets significantly better throughout the season 2 run, and season 2 is a lot better than season 1 to begin with, but it continues to get better as it goes, and they do a lot of things. First of all, there's a lot of great fan moments in it. As a Star Trek fan, there's a lot of things that's like, okay, that was really cool. And they do a lot of things that are retroactively fixing things that I had huge problems with season 1. So it's like, okay, at least you fixed that.
Mm-hmm.
I still think the series is plagued by lazy writing, because if you hadn't done that to begin with, you wouldn't have needed to retroactively fix it later. But at least you made the effort to retroactively fix it. So, all right. But we also got the news today that we're getting a Captain Pike series, and Anson Mount was far and away, hands down, the best thing about season 2 of Discovery, was coming in as Captain Christopher Pike. So I'm okay with it.
Well, let's move on to news.
Our first bit of news: the BBC has announced a new multi-platform story that's going to launch later this year in a 12-week part called Time Lord Victorious. So it will see things like books, magazines, comics, escape rooms, Big Finish, and BBC Audio, all doing, among other things, all doing a story in this Time Lord Victorious story arc.
It looks like it's going to center around the 8th Doctor, the 9th Doctor, and the 10th Doctor, right?
Yeah, and I think it's going to mostly focus around the 10th Doctor.
Yeah, I think
in
that'll
that
be the
time
center
during the
story.
specials.
Yeah. In fact, I would not be surprised if we saw at least David Tennant and Paul McGann do some audio for Big Finish come back, since they both have recorded. Obviously, McGann records audio all the time, and David Tennant's done some, so it'll be pretty interesting. What'll be really interesting is see if they convince Christopher Eccleston to do one. That would be really cool. We know 2 books for sure. Yeah.
They just announced The Knight, the Fool, and the Dead by Steve Cole, which focuses on the 10th Doctor as he travels back to the Dark Times, an era where life flourishes and death is barely known. So he's trying to cheat death in his Time Lord Victorious mode. And then the other one is called All Flesh is Grass by Una McCormick. And this features the 3 Doctors together. And it seems like it's kind of a sequel to the first book. And the covers are gorgeous.
Yeah, they do. They look really cool.
The artwork has been very impressive on what I've seen thus far.
So what do you guys think of this? What a great idea, huh?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they pull it off. And especially for some of the things like the escape rooms where people can't go not everyone can go take part in it. How are they going to make it so that part of the story is still conveyed to everybody? I'm really curious about how
I think that's what I'm a little worried about, except for I don't know that the interconnectivity is going to be as grand as we all think it will be. And I think just for that reason that there will be people that won't be able to do escape rooms, or there'll be people that won't be able to afford every aspect of this as far as, the wallet goes. So I have a feeling that there'll be a lot of loose interconnectivity. There'll probably be some things that are big, grand carryovers. But I think things like the escape room, maybe even some of the video. This was a video game tie-in too, or I know there's comics, books, audios. So really, the escape room is probably the only thing that's going to be very inaccessible for probably most of the U.S., unless they figure out how to do some over here in the U.S. But even then, as vast and big as we are, there's no guarantee it's going to come to everybody's area if they do manage to start doing some in the U.S.
They almost need to film of somebody doing the escape room so you at least kind of get the plot point of it and release that. They almost kind of need to do that.
See, you'd have heard the broadcast that Palpatine was back if you played the video game. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Luckily, I don't think there's a Fortnite tie-in.
I'm torn, as with most things anymore on Doctor Who. There's a part of me that's like, do we really need another big gargantuan multi-epic crossover
yes, we do
event? And the other part of me is like, yeah, of course, especially with different doctors than what we've had before, and this particular configuration. Yeah. So.
There's no part of me though that thinks we don't need it, and I think part of my reason for that is because if you don't want to involve in it, don't. If you're not a book reader, if you're not a comic reader, you don't have to worry about it meddling into television, because obviously the one element that's missing in this whole lineup is TV. They have not announced any television stuff. So if it's not your thing, or if you just want to indulge in a little bit of it, some of the Big Finish stuff maybe, then you just kind of do that. So I don't think there's any reason not to do it. I think it's going to be this grand fun thing Big Finish is involved, and they've always been great at everything they've done. I can't imagine them signing on to a project that hasn't been thought through. And so I think everything will be.
I just mean more from
the fun and well done.
From the same standpoint that we kind of jokingly go, "Oh, Titan's giving us another Doctor Who crossover this year." You know what I mean? It's like,
but at least it's not a 13 Doctor story. They're managing it by 3, so
right,
and it's a bit more ambitious too, because it's multi-platform more so than comics.
Right.
So I think that's kind of makes it stand apart, and it really will help fill that gap while we wait for the holiday special.
Yeah,
very true. All right, well, let's move on to a little op-ed piece that came out this week. you guys get a chance to read the? I'm trying to pull it up here. I thought I had it in the background, but I don't.
Did this get posted anywhere, or was it just me sending it to you?
I think you
No,
just sent it.
you. Oh yeah, you did. Okay, that's why I don't have it over here because you just sent it to me. No, you posted it on
Did I
Facebook,
post?
didn't you? No, maybe not.
I don't post much of anything anymore. I always run it through you guys, especially if something like this. It's an op-ed.
That's probably a good idea. How did you send it?
I think it was in Messenger.
I believe
Oh,
yes, it is in
okay.
Messenger.
Okay, hang on. All right. Well, I'll obviously cut
So
this
you
out.
got to go all the way back now.
That's not too far.
I guess, well, since you're cutting this out anyways, should we do the Power of the Dalek special edition too?
What was that? I missed that.
The announcement that they're
Oh
doing
no,
a special
no,
edition.
no,
Okay.
no. All right, I found it.
But why?
But the
Yeah, why,
Highlanders.
why are they doing it? Well, the Highlanders isn't part of it, so
Oh, did that finally get resolved?
yeah, it's not even on there. So
Oh, I thought it was going to be.
nope.
Somehow it got listed on a bunch of websites, but never.
Yeah,
on...
it did. Well, that's what got me excited about it at first, but then yeah, it's not even part of it.
So then why are they doing it?
Just because it's special edition, they're going to milk some more money out of it. I think part of it probably comes down to the fact, now that we're talking about it, comes down to the fact that they aren't ready to release a Troughton box set, and so they're looking for small things to do outside of the large box sets that they're doing. I really think it's all it comes down to.
But okay, so if I get just for my edification, then I guess I'm confused. We're getting a new Power of the Daleks special edition,
updated animation.
With updated animation. That's the only new content that's on.
Well, there's new bonus features too.
Yeah, bonus features, and I get the impression that it's just some tweaks to the animation too. It's not like all brand new animation. They've tweaked some stuff basically.
It polished it a little bit more.
Yeah. And it's on Blu-ray this time because, well, no, I guess they had it in Blu-ray in the UK too, didn't they? For the first one.
Yeah.
We just did get it over here.
No.
And they still haven't had a US release on this special edition that I've seen.
No. Which they may not, which.
All right, then, pass.
Yeah, I was a bit miffed by all that. All right, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so let's move on and talk about this little op-ed piece. It was published on the website called Arc Digital Media. And it's a piece by Hannah Long talking about the 13th Doctor is the new 6th Doctor, and here's why. And she goes on to kind of make comparisons to Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor and Colin Baker's 6th Doctor. If you haven't got a chance to read this, I'm going to put the link in the show notes so you can go through and look at it. But I just wanted to kind of get your guys' opinion. You guys read this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What do you guys think of this? My first impressions was I think maybe when I started reading, I got a little defensive because I thought, no, I don't see the comparison at all. And I think she still sort of misses sort of the comparison, while on the same things that she's critiquing the show of doing, she seems to turn around and do the same thing by pigeonholing it into something that it's not, which is what she's very critical of, pigeonholing the 13th Doctor season, especially the recent one, into how they just kind of threw things in as fan service in the 6th Doctor's era, and how it was you had to have seen something in the 3rd Doctor or the 2nd Doctor's era to make sense of something that was happening here, and she's blaming the new series of doing the same thing. But at the same time, she's comparing apples to oranges while she thinks that they're comparing apples to apples. So I got a little turned off on that.
Well, her example she used was referring to Peter Capaldi in Fires of Pompeii.
Right,
which isn't
not as far removed.
And there's no comparison. I mean, if you're comparing the 13th Doctor to the 6th Doctor, you can't throw in a 12th Doctor story in there.
Well, and I think
showrunner.
And she says, arguably
blast Chibnall and Whittaker for that.
Exactly, and I think she's saying arguably it's the same as they did with Colin Baker's era with like Attack of the Cybermen, where they called back to some of the Second Doctor era stuff. But you're exactly right. You're making a comparison between the Sixth Doctor and the 13th Doctor, and then you use examples like that. So it's almost like at some point in this article, she started kind of reaching for comparisons.
Yeah. When I first saw the piece, and I kind of thought, oh boy, here we go again. And I almost didn't even read it. And then I started to read it, and it made just enough of a tentative connection that I kind of kept going with it. And then it turned into an attack piece, and I got angry. But then it came back around, and it made just enough of a couple of connections. It's like, okay, that one's valid.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's valid. And she makes some interesting points with the way that John Nathan Turner's approach to the show. Okay, it does kind of sort of feel similar to what Chris Chibnall is doing with the show.
Yeah.
The antagonistic nature of the way that they've written Colin Baker could kind of sort of be related in some ways to what they're doing with Jodie Whittaker. Not antagonistic, but just in some of the ways back and forth with some of the different things. And I'm not going to get into all the different details. You'd have to go and read the article if you're really interested. But it made some things that were like, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. Yeah. Do I agree with it? Maybe there's a couple of things here that.
Well, I think that
there's some smoke, but.
Well, I think another one of the consistencies that I would compare it to was she's comparing the 13th Doctor's era and the 6th Doctor's era, as Keith had pointed out, and then does the Fires of Pompeii. She does the same thing, though, when she's comparing JNT to Chibnall. She uses some examples from the 5th Doctor's era, which at that point, JNT had started in the 5th Doctor's era and carried over into the 6th Doctor's era. And so she's using comparisons of two different eras and two different doctors in order to compare two showrunners, which I don't think was fair either. So there's some inconsistency with that. The thing that I do maybe sort of agree with her is maybe kind of the bland appearance of the 6th Doctor. The 6th Doctor's, garish outfit just to be garish, and Jodie's sexless apparel are simply outfits. They don't lend anything to either character other than being an attention piece. Yeah, exactly. They're costumes instead of outfits. So I did fall down on that side and agree with her on that point.
The other interesting point I thought she made was of Trial of a Time Lord and the Timeless Child, how they all resolved very similarly. I thought that was an interesting comparison that I hadn't thought of.
I think, though, that if you, I agree. I on the surface, level, I agree. But I think because they're both very kind of grandiose ideas, and they are a bit game changing, it's almost like she was making it sound like Chibnall was copying Trial of the Time Lord ideal. I think you could probably make a lot of comparisons on how Doctor Who has borrowed upon itself. So I don't think that's a fair assessment to say, well, just because they had sort of these game-changing, overarching, things that stepped in and did something absolutely different with Doctor Who, and you can argue that you were doing a lot of things the same and repeating stuff, but then you're also making these grand changes. So it's almost a little bit schizophrenic as well.
Well, and that's you said the right word not that long ago, Glenn, that I think the entire article is just on the surface. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's that much depth to the article and its comparisons or criticisms. It's all surface level stuff. So that's why I can't take it too seriously.
The biggest thing I take away from it, though, is, and Sean, I think, was sort of echoing this as well, it's not a hit piece. While it's not deeply critical, like it doesn't go into depth or support itself enough, at least it's not a lambasting of the Doctor, and it's not a love letter for the 13th Doctor. She really does try to come down on the middle side of it and look at it from other perspectives. So I appreciated that much.
Ultimately, she does play fair, which I appreciated. And, as you pointed out, as the schizophrenic nature, if you want to complain about the show borrowing from itself, you can go look no further than Tom Baker's Genesis of the Daleks.
Right.
You can argue that we've already done that story.
Right.
It's a repeat of the Daleks. It's the origin of the Daleks. Oh, but we're going to do it differently.
We'll even go back to that third Dr. Dalek story. It was pretty similar to a previous one, too.
Planet of the
Yeah.
Daleks is very similar to
And as we've joked, how many times has the Earth been destroyed by solar flares? I mean, it's just how many times have we gone to Atlantis? There are certain themes that continue to come up in the show that are going to continue to come up in the show. And partly because of the mythological nature of these themes, and partly because, well, it's just a good story. You know, if you've got a good yarn, there's no reason to throw it out. You just find a way to put a new spin on it.
And unlike a lot of other media, when you've got 50 plus years of television lore to borrow from, you're going to end up copying some ideas. You're going to end up, especially when you are trying to please both long-term fans and new fans, you're going to end up borrowing some stuff in order that maybe inadvertently borrow it in the process.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, one of the reasons why we are socially distancing ourselves and we're actually recording these from our homes is because we are still dealing with COVID-19. And because of COVID-19, I think a really cool thing in Doctor Who fandom has happened, and that has been the Doctor Who lockdown, which I think was previously called Who at Home. It's the tweet along that has been happening where everybody basically gets their own copies of particular stories, and they get together and they everybody hits play at a certain time, and then everybody joins in the fun. They do tweet alongs. There is a usually been connected a special guest. We've had Russell T. Davis involved in these. We've had and then this is the tweet alongs themselves: David Tennant,
Matt Smith,
Donna Noble, what's her name? Catherine Tate. Even help me. So Bill Nye was tweeting
Richard
along
Curtis.
with Richard Curtis. So
Neil
there's been
Gaiman, I think, did one, didn't he?
Who's that?
Didn't Neil Gaiman do one?
Neil Gaiman, yeah, with the
Sophia
Doctor's
Miles.
wife. Sophia Miles has been involved. So a lot of people that have been connected, like big names that have been connected, have been joining on this, which has been a lot of fun. But I think one of the things that I've really, really been excited about is every time they do one of these, they end up having some supplemental material that comes out as well. And I think credit where credit's due. I think Emily Cook, who is was she an editor at Doctor Who magazine, was this was sort of her brainchild. This had come about based on just a simple, hey, we should all watch an episode of Doctor Who and tweet along. And I think the first one was Day of the Doctor, right? That was the first big one.
Let's be honest here. Credit where credit is due.
For the lockdown, it has been Emily Cook all the way. 100%.
Friday Night Who.
100%.
7 years ago.
Emily Cook is the creator of this, because we weren't the first ones tweeting along to Doctor Who either. There have been many before us.
But we were the ones that made it cool.
For this sort of thing, this thing that's come together and really kind of brought, I think, fandom together entirely goes to her. And a lot of this, I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of the supplemental material has been produced by her. She gets a producer credit on these as well. So that's been pretty cool. But as we said, I think Day of the Doctor was the very first one that came out. And before that, we got a little hint from her and from Stephen Moffat, who rejoined Twitter specifically in order to do this tweet along with it. And he did a little treat for us called Strax Saves the Day, which got Dan Starkey involved, doing that little video of Strax. Pretty much just doing sort of a version of what he did for the 50th anniversary, except for it was a little stuffed Strax doll with Dan Starkey's voice. And then Mattern Vastra, what's the actress's name? Help me out.
Neve McIntosh.
Thank you. Neve McIntosh even pitched in and helped with her voice as well. So what did you guys think of this one? I thought this was a lot of fun. In fact, this was the one that surprised me. And yeah, I mean, I think it surprised us all because it was the first one. But when I saw that they were doing that, I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. A neat little nugget to add on to make this kind of fun. And I think that's what sort of kicked off my excitement for it was, yeah, it was fun to sit down and watch. and tweet along with, Stephen Moffat tweeting and talking about Day of the Doctor. But to have, I think even David Tennant was tweeting along that day too, wasn't he? And Billy Piper, I believe they all were involved that day. Anyway, that was cool in itself, but to have the little extra nugget of material that really kind of made it feel like we were taking this seriously, and it was an event thing, even though it was a silly little thing like this little video, I think that's what really kind of nailed it for me was, hey, this is a really cool thing that's happening.
It definitely
Yeah,
had
the video was absolutely hilarious.
it definitely had an air. Also, I think there was an added plus for anybody who had seen it in the theater. If you were fortunate enough, as we were, to get to go and catch Day of the Doctor in a theater environment and get this little short. And of course, it was on one of the special features on the DVD. But seeing it on the big screen in 3D and having Strax throw popcorn at you and all that nonsense, to then turn around and rework those same jokes this way, it was just kind of a perfect bookend in a way. It kind of hit me with not only this is fun, but also this kind of big wave of nostalgia. And oh yeah, I remember when we were there and did that. I mean, so it kind of just had this added oomph to it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, and then moving on to the next little piece of material that came out was actually something from Chris Chibnall. We got Things She Thought While Falling. And this, I think, was coordinated with the BBC, because this was a short story that was actually put out on the website at the same time. Or not at the same time, but near to this. I think it was just a few days later that this came out. And it's a cool little short story of sort of what was going through her mind after she fell from the TARDIS and before she landed in that train where she meets up with Yaz, Ryan, and Graham. And I thought it was kind of neat. We've always sort of in the back of our minds wondered, how, things like, how did she survive the fall? What happened in that interim time, and why does she just sort of end up there? And while I don't think it necessarily goes far in explaining those mystery things, it softens that mystery of what was going on, because she talks about the regenerative energy. She admits that it's going to hurt when she lands. She just, the fact that she ends up where she ends up comes down to the smelling the air and realizing that it's Earth, and that it's England more specifically, and then even zeroing it down to South Yorkshire. I thought was kind of neat little things that were added and peppered in there.
Yeah, this one, more so than the Strax, got me excited of, oh, this is kind of canon content. They're gonna do more stuff than just silly little videos. This is really cool. This is the one that got me excited about the content they're putting out.
And I think
Because
this was
also really well written.
I think this was at the point where I kind of felt like the BBC was getting on board with this, and I'm glad that they did early. I think they realized that this was an opportunity. I mean, and obviously it was very opportunistic of them, but I think in a right way, they realized that they had something blossoming here that they needed to be a part of, and that's what they did. And I think that's why I think that it's really cool that they got on in the ground floor very early on and started sanctioning some of this stuff that was being associated with the lockdown.
Agreed.
Well, it works both ways for them. I mean, you can obviously the Doctor Who creative group is such a fruitful and giving a group of people anyway, that once word kind of got out that Chibnall had said, hey, we would like to do this, would you contribute something? Oh yeah, okay. Once you have that, then the BBC can either get on board or get out of the way.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And the BBC, to their credit, was like, well, we don't have a product at the moment. We should take advantage of this wellspring of creative talent and continue to promote the product that we're going to have eventually. So, right. Yes, absolutely. Let us help you with that. What can we do? And just kind of ran with it.
I think what helps too is they took it one step further with the follow-up to this, and that was having a message from the Doctor, which was the little video message from Jodie Whittaker in character as the 13th Doctor, almost kind of as a reassurance to people that, hey, we're in this together, we're going to get through this. We've seen worse, she's seen worse, and we're all in this together. And I thought it was kind of a nice little motivational PSA, working in continuity but also working as sort of a meta item to say, hey, we're all in this together. Even the Doctor, it's almost taking comfort in something that you love, that we are all doing this together, and it's for the better, the betterment of humanity. And I liked that about that.
It really also made me like Jodie even more as a person, because she filmed this at home in her closet.
Mm-hmm.
So she obviously has a costume at home too, and is totally willing to just dress up and film these sort of things.
Which
that really shows me that she's embraced the role. It's not a paycheck for her. It's something she's passionate about.
I agree. I did scrutinize the costume a little bit because I could tell it wasn't screen accurate, but I thought, A for effort.
I was excited because, as you pointed out, filmed at home, and you, after, starting with this one, but after several of these, you begin to go, everybody's house kind of looks like mine. I mean, when you're trying to fake it, it's one thing when you've got Patrick Stewart reading sonnets out by the pool.
Right.
Because, yeah, okay, whatever. But no, we're trying to make this, the Doctor's hiding somewhere. Okay, it's got to look like a room in the TARDIS, or Rory is sitting by the fire. But,
exactly.
It can't look like any place that could look like normal, So it's just, okay, it's got to be a blank wall. Okay, yeah, go find a blank wall in your house. All these houses look like mine. It's kind of awesome. That's what I took away from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we sort of moved into the next tweet along, which ended up being Rose was the next one. And I think that took place on March 26th. And getting involved in that was Russell T. Davis and Mark Benton. Oh, we should say these all had hashtags too, which I thought were very cleverly done. And I hope they continue to come up with really clever hashtags. But dropping with that one, we got a really cool thing called Doctor Who and the Time War, which was, come to find out, Russell's RTD's idea of the lead-in from the time, basically a handoff from the 8th Doctor to the 9th Doctor, sort of what happened in the last days of the 8th Doctor, leading up to the end of the Time War, imagining what the moment was like, dropping some of the references of the Nightmare Child and things like that, and then obviously moving on into the regeneration of 9. Now this, interestingly enough, was a concept that was asked to be done for the 50th year by Doctor Who magazine, and he had sort of wrote this up, and they went to Stephen Moffat to kind of get some approval, who was a story writer at the time and was kind of had a lot of say in what couldn't be published. And he did say, I do have something in mind for the handoff, and can you hold back on this? And so that's why this didn't end up getting published, is because as we find out later, Stephen Moffat had other ideas for how things were going to work, with John Hurt being, in between Doctor and things like that. But it was really kind of cool to see this piece of possibility come out and serve as a non-canonical now quasi or a prequel to Rose.
Definitely a fascinating what if, and interesting parallels to actual Day of the Doctor, like the description of the moments being oak and brass.
Oak and brass, yeah. I think it was Russell said in a commentary about it that he thinks that maybe they were both channeling McGann's style of TARDIS when they were writing that, and he wonders if maybe that was because that's why the similarities are there. It's an interesting take on what might have been.
And of course, now that Chibnall has given us all Doctors are canon, then that this doesn't have to be an alternative tale. It certainly can
Well,
fit
there
somewhere.
are still rules.
There's no unknown doctor here.
Right. There are still rules within the continuity. I mean,
No, there are not.
there still exists an area of establishment.
There are no rules.
It's the bookends that have now been pushed further away, and so that I think is the thing we have to take away from what we know now. Not to say they won't step in and establish something later and then canonize this and Shulka Doctor, which the Timeless Children does not do as well. You can argue that Doctor could be a previous incarnation, but I think that still doesn't work in the sense that where that Doctor falls. But
So now that's my question: is having read this as you were reading this, knowing what this was meant to be, did you visualize 8 actually regenerating into 9? Did you have to fight any internal headcanon to not see John Hurt regenerating into 9 since he was the War Doctor? Or was it, what was it? Was it 8 going into Shaka?
What I'm about to say will probably go against that Shulka statement, but no, I visualized it. My head didn't get in the way, and I think probably because until John Hurt in 2000, what was that, 2013, until they introduced the concept of someone in between there, I always had it in my head that 8 became 9, and so this story, knowing that it was placed before Rose, took me back to that time when I remembered, back when I thought that. And so it was easy to visualize that. Now, going against that, I did know that Shulka Doctor existed, and I had read or had seen Scream of the Shulka. So that maybe sort of plays against that. But when Christopher Eccleston came on the scene, I always visualized McGann's Doctor regenerating into Eccleston's Doctor.
Keith?
I didn't have any issues. More than anything, it was I visualized McGann from the movie instead of Night of the Doctor. The outfit, all of that stuff, just because that's the image used on the cover.
Yeah, I think I did the same.
Okay, just curious.
Moving on from that, then we got Revenge of the Nestine, which in turn was a sequel, I guess, to Rose, which I thought was. It was here's what I take away from this. Russell T Davies is a terrific writer. He's a great wordsmith. I've always enjoyed his stories that he wrote for television, but I don't think I've ever read anything that he's written in prose. And it wasn't until I read these that I realized how elegant of a writer he is and how he can really paint a picture with words. And I think the story is beautifully written. I think it's very clever, but I almost think it's unnecessary. It's maybe because it doesn't really have a point other than to be a coda on Rose. It didn't grab me in any way as far as I didn't really care what happened next to the nesting consciousness. So there was no wow factor, I guess, for me.
It's one of those codas that had there been a Auton sequel more than what we've ever gotten, I would be, okay, this is how they survived. Right. Otherwise, it's just like, they survived and are out there somewhere. I guess you can kind of maybe connect it to a unit story that you guys haven't listened to yet.
Maybe, and I don't think that was his goal, though.
I don't think it was.
If he wasn't involved in that. My thought was that he was somehow trying to connect this to when, at least I thought he was going this direction, when Moffat brings them back in Pandorica opens. But I couldn't see a connection there as to how that would happen, because that, this nesting consciousness, at least iteration, was stranded in the 20th century or 21st century, but those were, back in the time of Cleopatra, Roman Empire. So it didn't end up connecting. I think I so badly wanted it to have some, like you said, if there was some sort of continuation to the Auton story that this was a nice little bridge for, I probably would have enjoyed it more.
I guess he was also just probably trying to make a political statement and explain their prime minister.
Ding.
Oh, I didn't even, you know what? Now you say that, I didn't even get that, but you're right. I bet that's exactly what they were doing.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that. That's exactly what was happening there.
That our American side is showing.
So next on the schedule then was Vincent and the Doctor, which Richard Curtis, Matt Smith, Tony Curran, Karen Gillan, and Emma Fruit all involved in, which I think was probably the largest lineup they had at this point of people involved in the tweet along. And along with that, I think we ended up getting, what was that? Incoming Message, I think, was next, which didn't really connect.
I don't think we got anything for Vincent and the Doctor.
Right,
Because Incoming Message is Yvonne Hartman.
That's right. And that was, that was another Russell T. Davies. He had sort of a trilogy of things as well. That was Yvonne Hartman doing her piece from Torchwood 1 from, what was the two-part story? Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, yeah. So that was a neat little callback. I think Russell T. Davies confirmed that was actually Pete's World, Yvonne. And I believe that somehow this Yvonne even connects to the Torchwood audio story that they did with this universe's Yvonne. So I'm not sure how, because we haven't listened to it, but he made it sound like it also connects to that as well. So
yeah, Pete's World Yvonne is in Aliens Among Us from Torchwood.
Okay, so that's probably what he's referring to there. So
this is kind of similar to that Doctor one, where it's just, it's cool. It's cool to see her come back and do something.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, as you said, nothing really connected to Vincent and the Doctor. 11th Hour was next in line. I think at about that time was when we got Press Play, which was the what was that one? I can't remember that one.
This is the one where Susan pops up in the TARDIS while 13's there with the message, and essentially made Doctor Who canon, the show Doctor Who canon within the universe.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really clever and really well written.
I thought so too. Yeah. It was one of those things that
it was so clever.
It was clever. I almost wanted to say, it was very heartwarming that Susan had left these messages, for the Doctor. She set this system up for her. But then, it brings in the meta aspect of the fact that she can rewatch her adventures in time and space, even making the reference that there are a few missing episodes, which I thought was kind of clever as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts out as a nice little awe moment of the Doctor and Susan, the Doctor getting to see Susan again as she was when she left her, but then turns on itself and becomes a little self-referential, which I thought was clever, but. And I think maybe the heartwarming part of it has already been sort of overdone, because we have had Paul McGann and Paul McGann's Doctor and Susan in audio now. We've sort of had that, reuniting moment. The first Doctor reunited with Susan in the Five Doctors. So it has happened before. It's not like we're longing for it. I know there are people on another podcast that we do at every chance they get want to see Susan returned to the series, but it was what it was. It was a neat little story.
Well, it also feels a little real world referential in the fact that she's alone on the TARDIS, and it's the isolation aspect of things, and it all kind of ties in together too.
And that starts becoming a reoccurring theme in a lot of these special things that they were doing. In fact, the next one was called.
Speaking of isolation,
Yeah, next one was called Breaking Isolation, which was just a cute little comic that Russell T Davis tweeted out, or I think it might have been on his Instagram. But anyway, yeah, it had come out, and it's just this cute little thing with the Daleks having taken the top of their casings off, and they're tossing a ball around.
oh, it's actually a re-release from Now We Are 600. Because you remember he did those illustrations for that
That's
poetry
right.
collection.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
actually a picture out of that book.
Oh, very good. I did not realize that.
Neither did I.
Oh, very cool.
Now we get to the true 11th Doctor tie-in and
right, exactly.
the Raggedy Doctor.
Yes. Which I think that of everything that we had gotten, this was where you could tell that they were ready to sort of dig their heels in and get really serious with these supplemental materials, because this, I think, is the first one that was well produced. It's still very simplistic in nature. It's still a an actor doing a voiceover we don't see on camera, but we've got some mild animations, at least some moving pictures with the book, flipping pages and seeing the images in it. But I think what was really cool was that Caitlin Blackwood came back and reprised her role as Amelia Pond, little Amelia Pond, and sort of kind of filling in that time between meeting the Raggedy Doctor and the Doctor coming back. And I thought that was really cool. It was there's certainly ones that made me cry more than this one, but this one I shed a little tear on it. I thought it was just very heartfelt, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah, it really was.
And Caitlin totally still sounds like little Amelia Pond.
Yeah,
I was very prepared to go into this and not hear her. I mean, I've met the woman. There's no way she's going to be. Nope. Still little Amelia.
I think that's what the way she sells it is she has the inflection in her voice, and she puts the little nuances on it that a very young, like a 10-year-old girl would do. Yeah. And I think that's why she sells it. And I don't think she's like that in real life, because, when we talk to her, she's very well-spoken, very elegant woman, but she knows where this is. And I think that's the calling of a true actress is when they can put themselves in, not just doing a role, but doing a role that you did, 10 years ago, or not quite that many, but 7, 8 years ago, and being able to nail that and convincingly enough as your younger self, I thought was really well done.
And it was 10 years ago. It was for the 10th anniversary of the 11th Hour
right.
that did the Tootie Long for.
You're absolutely right. Good stuff. And then next up was Terror of the Umpty-Ooms, which I thought was actually, I think, another self-referential story, but really cleverly done, because I did not know where they were going with it. So in fact, when it is set up, I was convinced that this was some sort of infiltrating robot hiding out in a kid's home. And then as the story progresses and we find out what is going on, I thought, oh, this is very clever. She is trying to convince this kid that he's created this delusion and that he's actually wearing an earpiece, but he thinks that she's in her head because he has, what was it, dissociative something disorder? I can't remember what it's called. He obviously has this, and she's sort of kind of pulling him back to one of his probably his root personality, and only to find out even later that she's not even there. It's in his mind, and it's everything that he's sort of absorbed from the television series, which I thought was very cool to have another layer on top of that.
I thought Stephen Moffat did a great job capturing 13's voice.
Yeah,
I know that he says that he just right for the Doctor, but I think it was pretty clear that he tailored things to be Jodie Whittaker-esque.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to say that you write for the Doctor, but I think when you step away from it and then you observe somebody else being the Doctor, then you write for how they've become the Doctor. And so I think that it's in turn when he, as he's writing and he has somebody surrounding him, he realizes that whatever he gives them, they're going to turn into gold. And then he realizes also writing for a doctor later that's been established that he has nothing to do with. He realizes that the gold's already there. He just has to mine it now.
This would have been a very different Matt Smith in the
Mhm.
kid's head
Yeah.
story than it
Absolutely.
would be a Jody story.
But certainly would have been a different Peter Capaldi as well.
That's for sure.
Now I kind of want to read that one.
Of these little short stories we got, this one was probably one of the meatiest. I thought there was a
Yeah.
lot more substance to this and more ideas and more clever things in this than most of everything we've gotten. Pretty much is kind of fluffy and fun, and this was kind of something meaty and could have been kind of almost an actual story,
and
like an
quite
actual television or
surprisingly,
something. Yeah,
like after the light fluffy, just here's another little
Mhm.
short Doctor Who story to get into this, and suddenly go, oh, we're going there with it. Okay, it wasn't at all what I had expected. Going into it or coming out of it, which was quite surprising.
yeah.
I think they've done a good job of pacing these out and really kind of striking a balance with some lighter things, some more meta things, some deep things, some very emotional things, some fun things, some funny things. I think they've done a good job of striking that balance as they release each of these things. Which brings us to the next one, which was United We Stand, 2 Meters Apart, which was a webcast that Jodie did, again in character as the third Doctor, or 13th, third Doctor. No, she did it as the 13th Doctor. That's the one she portrays. And this one felt almost like the BBC decided we needed a more professional looking PSA. And so they actually put her in front of a different wall in her house, probably.
Yeah, it was still in her house. She just has a green wall somewhere.
And I think where the first one sort of played loose, fast and loose with the fact that it was almost a parallel that she was somewhere in isolation, but not really necessarily COVID related, but
Hiding
relating,
from Santarans.
yeah, but relating it to what we were going through. So we were getting a message through parallels. I think this one's a little more direct. This is the one where they decided this is going to be an address of handling, the guidelines, handling the COVID-19 crisis in the real world. And I think the BBC felt that they needed to do another one of these. It was maybe a little more direct approach, and I think that's where they landed with this one.
Yeah, agreed. Kind of a reminder.
Yeah. And I don't fault him at all for doing it. I think it's a good thing. It's a service to people, reminding them that, hey, we're still in the middle of this. We're still in the midst of this. So stay safe. And I think they did that there. Next up was Rory's Story, which I believe Neil Gaiman actually penned this one, right? This was this one coincided with The Doctor's Wife. This one I thought was neat. Nothing really special or very cool about it, other than the fact that it's, the what's the son's name? Anthony. Anthony's on the way, and he's recording this story. And my first thought was, when I see him, talking to a camera, and he's got, sort of like 1920s or 1940s digs, on. There's a kind of a classic lamp to his left. But he's recording it on an iPhone. I mean, they've even got the little like timer at the top and the little iPhone button, to play record. And I thought, this is kind of weird. How are they going to explain this? And it was when he leans all the way into the lens and says, the only iPhone or the only smartphone in existence. And I thought, okay, I'll buy it.
Why not?
I don't know how they're charging this thing, but we're going to go with it.
They obviously had a charger in their purse.
Well, here's the thing. The Doctor has always done something to his companions' cell phones in order for them to talk to their, loved ones over time and space from different, parts of the universe, different time zones and everything. I just kind of figured that whatever little zap he does also fixes the battery, so they have, a 2 million year charge.
That's true, because they never have a plot point where, oh no, my battery's dead.
Exactly, yeah. So
Can you imagine what interstellar roaming would do to the battery?
True.
I mean,
the drain on that thing.
I can't listen to Spotify without just.
What's nice is it also ties into that PS story that we got
Yeah,
after their run on the show.
yeah.
And quasi canonizes that.
That's what I was
Yeah.
about to say was we've always sort of looked at the PS story as sort of being just outside the scope of canon. But I think this definitely puts the footing right into canonizing that piece.
I always considered it canon.
I have
me
too.
too.
I mean, it's whatever's part of your head canon, but we've always talked about how maybe, referentially it's probably just outside canon. It is now. They fixed it. So that was fun, and then we come up to the beginning of the Shadow trilogy, as it's been called now. Paul Cornell's first story, that the Shadow passes, which again,
the pretty one,
which again becomes sort of a parallel storytelling to what's happening now, putting the Doctor and the companions in a situation of isolation, just as we're experiencing, giving us something sort of to relate to, which I thought was very cleverly done. The Doctor dealing with this in the way she does, I think Cornell drills down and really brings out a piece of the Doctor that we kind of take for granted. That she does things very, at least the 13th Doctor is doing things very selflessly, sorry, in order to ease the companions who she knows is going through things on a different level. And I thought that was a really clever way to tell that story while also putting them in an isolation situation and being able to parallel it to what we're sort of going through as humanity.
And it's so interesting to see them portray the 13th Doctor going through this, whereas I'm thinking back to the 11th Doctor in The Power of Three and
going stir crazy.
Yeah, it's just, and yeah, this is how this Doctor would react to this sort of situation, and how she'd try to keep her companions calm and relaxed, and as opposed to the reverse, where the companions would be trying to keep the Doctor calm and relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
It's equal parts frustrating from I totally get why this is written this way, because we're locked in our houses. We are, under lockdown, and this was meant to be a companion piece for us. Okay, gotcha. But then there's the other part of me, the storyteller, the grand adventure part of it, that's like, Death Moon. What part of that are we not going to go investigate? We are not concerned at all that this thing shows up every 64 years. We're just going to go, oh, okay, 3 weeks underground. Death Moon. Okay, I'll sit on my hands on that one and wait, because I know we're going to talk about it.
Well, I was just glad that they didn't actually just stay in the one room the whole time. My first thought was, why aren't they exploring and talking to these other people? Why are they being locked in a room? It's not like it's a cell.
Right.
But then they eventually do get out.
Right.
So
right. Also, there's the quick mention of the little girl with the balloon in the mirror, and the Doctor, entertaining the idea of mercy, which on the surface of that, if you catch, I didn't catch it the first time. If you catch it, you realize it's a nod to human nature, which is also the Paul Cornell story. And it wasn't until the second read that I went, oh gosh, that was in there. I didn't equate it to human nature, but I recalled reading it and wondering what that was about. And so we're going to get to the other one because we have one in between here, but I thought that was kind of a neat way to subtly make this the first story of that trilogy that comes along.
Mm-hmm.
Because in between there came Probably my favorite of all
Mine-
of these.
Mine too.
The Farewell Sarah Jane, which I think we've all I think maybe we've all longed for this for a long time. I don't know that any of us ever expected we would see it addressed. Um, but to be able to come back around and do this and give Russell T Davies a chance to Davis to do this and put some closure on that story, I think what was the perfect touch. And then also to have all of the kids come back and be a part of this was just amazing. Just
That's what
I was bawling
not
a
just
minute and
the
a half into
kids, but
this.
having Joe there and Ace
Yes.
and everybody that
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it wasn't just a story, it was more than a story. And
Well, and
it
I think
felt like the actors themselves were also saying goodbye to her.
that's what's cool about it is that they subtly step through each one from no, I don't want to say importance to their least important to most important, but maybe least um least referential to most referential. So like Joe Jones having that one adventure with her,
Mhm.
and the connection that she had. Uh, Ace was a strange one, but the way that it was done well because it's like Ace. We've all agreed that Ace got that mention in that story where everybody wondered if it was Dottie or not Dottie, Dodo, or if it was Ace. We all knew it was Ace, but that she had set up that what's the World Society thing that she's done. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They dropped that line that set up,
The charitable
which
Earth.
yes, that's it. Which the BBC then canonized with the trailer for the Seventh Doctor box set that we got, and finalized put the stamp on yes, that's who she was referring to bring her in to reference Sarah Jane and talk about that. And it was almost that I think Ace is probably the companion that we all maybe parallel with Sarah Jane. We compare Ace and the Seventh Doctor to Sarah Jane and the Fourth Doctor's, at least their relationship wise. How they're not only mentors, but the Doctor's not only a mentor in a way, but also a very good friend, and becomes more and more so the longer they are together. And so I think that's why Ace was very appropriate here, because it was almost a stand-in for that type of relationship that the Doctor and the companion had. And then having obviously Ronnie's mom, we sort of get closer and closer to the importance of the characters, and then ending with the three: Clyde, Luke, and then Ronnie. And somehow I wondered
And just all the
why.
name drops of everyone who attended also.
Oh yeah, that was so cool. That was so cool. I think even the way that the order that they did them at first sort of surprised me, but it was almost like the story really, even though she came late to the game. Ronnie came late to the game. The first season was I can't remember the actress's name.
Maria.
Yeah, well, I couldn't remember the actress's name, but yeah, Maria.
Oh yeah.
But even when it was Maria, the show was always sort of a Rose take. It was that perspective. It was from Maria, and in turn was from Ronnie's perspective. Even though Clyde obviously is the fun, quirky sidekick, and Luke is the son. He was the crux of Sarah, rescuing him from the Bane. But it really was sort of Ronnie was the grounding of that, and so I kind of appreciated the fact that they ended with her, because really everything, because she lived across the street. She was this was she was kind of our anchor. I think she was, Luke was this kid that we maybe didn't necessarily as viewers associate with, because he was also this genius. He was this alien. But Ronnie was kind of our surrogate into that world. She was the one that we identify, I think, with maybe her and Clyde to a point, but I think she's the one that we identify with. And I think that it was appropriate that they ended it with her. I'm taking up a lot of the chat here. What do you guys think of this one?
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, even though it made me cry.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into. I really didn't. I just kind of was going down the list, and it came up Feral Sarah Jane, and I went, oh, and clicked on it, and it was a video, and I went, oh, and then it started, and I made it about a minute.
It's about a minute and a half in when the waterworks start.
And I had to turn it off. I was at work. I was not. I was not emotionally prepared or capable to deal with it. So I kind of sat on it, and then I brought it home, and I told Mel, I was like, you've got to watch this with me. And then we wound up not even getting to it. It wound up being a couple of days before we could kind of get to it. And so we cuddled up and watched it. And I'm not ashamed to say that, yeah, the waterworks were pretty horrific.
Oh yeah, that was this is the one that did it for me. It was like, oh, okay, forget it. I'm crying.
And what got me the worst, the tears started with the name dropping and who was there, and even the ridiculous story about, well, they turned out to be minions of the trickster, but we locked him in this chest and threw him in the Atlantic. Just the fun absurdity of the little stories like that. I'm smiling through the memories. But when Joe showed up, and she says, I know you're all wondering where the doctor is, but think about it. He has two hearts. There's no way he could have. Mm-hmm. Oh man, yeah. I'm starting to do it again. And it's I was really torn, because it was one of those, like you said, Glenn, this was a moment that we kind of I don't think we ever thought that we would get this. I genuinely, and there was a part of me, I didn't think I wanted it. It was just kind of almost better that we didn't acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
That it just kind of, we knew it happened, but we don't have to talk about it, and we just, it's over there. But then we have the opportunity now, and we can acknowledge it, and it's something that closure that I didn't think that I wanted, that apparently I needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but then it still also kind of leaves it open to the idea that she's out there traveling with the doctor.
Oh, yeah, the ending is so beautiful.
And the other thing I really loved about it, in addition to everything you've said, was the playing catch up with the three kids, finding out what they've been up to since the series ended. I thought that was fantastic, and I thought they were true to all the characters perfectly.
Yep.
Even the references to what Maria has been up to.
Yeah. And Sky showing up in her human form.
Yeah.
The only fault, and I don't know, Keith, maybe you agree with me, I needed to see K9.
Yeah. There was reference to him.
Yeah.
But we didn't actually see him.
It was great to hear that he left with Ace because of all of the companions that would take him home.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because now the fan.
Give me that adventure now.
Yeah. Ace and K9 beating up Balix. Yeah.
Yes, please.
That's a big Finish series waiting to happen.
But yeah, no, I just needed a picture of him put in the, in the thing.
I don't know if I could have handled John Leeson coming back to say goodbye. I mean,
yeah,
I'll tell you. You talk about,
it was rough when Mr. Smith said it.
You talk about all the feels.
Yeah,
I watched this on April 19th, which, as we know, is the anniversary of her death, and was also the day and the reason we did the tweet along to The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. So I watched that. I was reminded earlier in the day that it was the anniversary of her death, and that's why we're doing Stolen End and Journey's End. And then that drops, and I watched that, and I bawl my eyes out of that. And then I watched Stolen Earth and Journey's End that afternoon, and all the feels come back for that one too, because and they're all good feels. I mean, I'm still crying, but they're all good cries. Not that the farewell story wasn't a good cry, it was, but in a different way. So it was a whole day of emotion for me on that day. And it was my anniversary. My wedding anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks.
Related.
Right. Anyway, but then that is followed up with, we get a little bit of a happier note. The Simple Things.
This was a fun little story.
This was
I
Graham
don't know
and
much
the
about
football, right?
but
Well, and especially
Football. What's a
European
football?
actual football.
yeah, football.
Football. Yeah, it was neat. I think it was kind of so typical in the fashion that Graham would want to do something and then things go amok. I mean, so much in the end, I could completely hear Graham in his voice complaining that, it's always me, I never get what I'm looking for, only to turn around and it be even better for him. And I think it's written very cleverly in a way that the Doctor so easily gets dropped in these situations, especially when there's elements out of their time. And we go into an entire episode of how she has to fix things so that something doesn't happen. But in this case, they turn it on their head by her allowing for this, because there's another way to deliver a message or teach a lesson here. And I thought that was really kind of a clever device in the storytelling. Draconian here, out of time, making a deal with lesser species for a warship. She doesn't have to stop it now. She knows it's something that she doesn't have to deal with until the future. And hey, maybe there's a lesson here for this Draconian as well.
Plus Draconians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Draconian's a new Who.
And yeah, absolutely right about hearing Graham's voice. I just hear. I mean, Bradley Walsh just oozed off the page with this.
He really did.
This one this one doesn't have as much substance as Terror of the Umptiums. This one has kind of that same feel to me, where it feels more just like a random short story that we get, instead of trying to tie into the isolation and all of the stuff that's going on currently. So it was kind of a nice refresh, a breath of fresh air after. We're gonna have metaphors and symbolism for COVID and all that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a nice, fun story.
Mm-hmm. And written by Joy Wilkinson, who also wrote The Witchfinders.
That's right.
And then moving on, we come back around and we end up with the second of the Shadow trilogy, written by Paul Cornell. And this one dropped on with the viewing of Human Nature and Family of Blood, which, as we've did a review in the past, we read Human Nature, and at the same time that we reviewed or went back and re-reviewed. I can't remember if it was a second time round thing or not, but those two particular 10th Doctor stories. And so what I really liked about this one was, as everybody knows, the book was written by Paul Cornell and was a Seventh Doctor and Benny story in which they're hiding from the family on Earth with the Chameleon Arch idea. And then obviously Paul Cornell readapted it for the television series when the 10th Doctor came around. But what I really liked about this is the fact that Lisa Bowerman, who voices Benny in the Big Finish stuff, is playing Benny in this story written by Paul Cornell and talking to the daughter of mine from the television story, which does a really cool job of folding together the Virgin New Adventure and Human Nature Family of Blood into sort of this neat little coexisting thing, which I thought was so cool. This was one of my favorite things because of, you know me, I'm that guy that wants everything in Doctor Who to fit. And if you can find clever ways to do it, all the better. This is a clever way to do it. It doesn't out and out answer why they can coexist, but it allows for them to do so. And I think that's what's really cool about this story.
It at the very least acknowledges the fact that they do coexist. And I like the idea that the Doctor comes and visits her once a month, and she's seen so many different versions of the Doctor, and even
Yep.
some we haven't even seen.
Well, and it sort of implies that there are various versions of her. That it's not just the two versions. That it's not just her
Yeah.
and not just the one from the prose story as well. And we get some Doctors drop. Now here, Sean, is where we can, I think, adapt the idea that Timeless Children has opened up some doors. We do get some Doctor descriptions that are outside of what we're familiar with our common 14. So
The one that couldn't walk, and the
redhead,
redhead
Who
who
thought
was
he
finally a
was
alive.
ginger, finally a ginger.
The old one with all the hair who had been the worst.
Yeah, I got the impression that was 12.
So
Yeah,
did
it was
I.
total. That was what I called it.
Because the one Benny also traveled with was also the worst. So
Right,
she doesn't like
exactly.
Scottish.
That's right. That's exactly right. I didn't even pick up on that until you brought that up. But then also to cleverly follow that up with the next story, which was the Shadow in the Mirror, which is the third part of this, where the 13th Doctor goes and actually releases Daughter of Mine from the mirror, from her entrapment, and very cleverly written from the perspective of the girl is not remorseful for what she did. She hasn't learned anything from this imprisonment or this punishment, and she doesn't believe she's meant to. And what's really cool about this is the fact that the 13th Doctor, regardless of everything that she has upheld as these other incarnations that have maintained keeping her trapped in this mirror, have she does something different, which is just show mercy. Simple mercy is all it is, and returning her to her home planet, which I thought was very, very cleverly done. And wonderful that they got Laura Wilson, who played the little girl in the series, to do the reading for this.
Well, it does feel very much in line with 13 that she's showing kindness, and that's a big thing what she's about. And initially when I first heard about this, and I was kind of like, oh, that's obvious, and looking at the image, it's obviously her releasing Daughter of Mine. I didn't know how I would feel about, obviously these were horrible creatures who needed punishment. There's a reason why the 10th Doctor did it. He wasn't just being cruel. He went a little above and beyond on how he did it, which was cruel, but the necessity of it was still there. But Paul Cornell explains it and handles it well enough that I'm okay with the fact that he let her out.
I agree.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I went into it going, I don't know how I feel about this, because, and it's been a while. I need to go back and revisit Human Nature again. But these were, I remember being terrified. I mean, equal parts terrified and hurt and angry at the end of that episode, and then feeling very justified with what the 10th Doctor did. Very, very righteously. Yeah.
Even as cruel as it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And and the line, I remember distinctly the line. That's when I saw the anger of the Time Lord, or now, of course, I say that I can't remember the line, but whatever it was. Yeah. And so to sit on that and know that every month that they're coming back, and it's very simple. Just say you're sorry. It's not like the Doctor is holding a grudge. I mean, are you really? Just apologize. That's all you got to do, and you'll be let out. Nope, not going to do it. Okay.
What's
And
very cool about it too is it's supposed to be a learning moment for daughter of mine.
Mhm.
And it turns into being because of what's set up in the Shadow Passes, it turns into being a learning moment for the 13th or for the Doctor instead.
and that's what made it work. And
That's
now
true.
what made it work doubly is I read these two out of order. I read this
So did
story
I.
first, and so I was very much not okay with it when we got to the moment. I was like, "Oh man, I don't know." And Paul Cornell justified it, and I went, "Yeah, I guess that's in keeping with the 13th Doctor, but I don't know if I'd have done it." And then I read the previous story, and
Well, which one? Shadow Passes or
the Shadow Passes.
or Shadow of Doubt? Okay, because
Well,
Shadow
technically
Passes.
both of them.
I think but I think Shadow Passes is what justifies the actions in the Shadow and the Mirror. I
Yeah.
think what Shadow of Doubt does is cleverly bridge the two and fold the book in. Is
Yeah.
what I think
Yeah.
is well done.
Yeah, no, technically both of them, but it was the Death Moon one where the 13th Doctor is talking about it, and you realize that this is something that's been weighing on her for a long time. That I feel like, and when she puts that context, when she puts that story in context of the larger issue, then you go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay, you're right. And then coming back to this, it's like, yeah, you are. It's not necessarily a learning experience for daughter of mine. It's a learning
Right.
experience for the Doctor, and that
Mhm.
suddenly became okay with it. So
Yeah.
then it became a learning experience for me.
Not to do them out of order ever again.
Yeah. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey. Sorry.
So
have you listened to our show? We don't do that.
No, we don't do that. We don't do anything in order. So yeah, trilogy, very nice touch. Some of my favorite parts of this was that would be another one that I was a complete highlight of this entire experiment.
Well, and if
Next,
anybody's going to find a way to canonize book and episode, and it's going to be Paul Cornell. I mean,
yeah, and the author, the author of both as well too. So,
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I felt was a little bit of a step away. As we know, there's sort of been kind of this official, unofficial lockdown that's happening. Emily Cook's been sort of, as we mentioned, spearheading this process, and it's been for the most part new series stuff. Part of that comes down to the fact that it's very much more accessible for a lot of people. It is contained episodes. You can obviously do most of them in 45 minutes. Some of them, when you do the two-parters, ends up being about an hour and a half. But they're still kind of, concise, limited things that you don't end up having to take. If we went back and did a classic story, obviously it would involve some more time. But what has been happening is this isn't the only tweet-alongs that's been happening. There have been groups, podcasts that have spearheaded some of these, and they have been doing their own watch-alongs with classic series. There's been some big Finnish tweet-alongs, listen-alongs. There has been a Torchwood one that John Barrowman was involved with. And in fact, what's his name from Angel?
James Marsters.
Thank you. Yeah, was involved in that one as well. So this has blossomed into something that is covering different areas too. People's, some people's taste is in the series, and they now have a place to go. And I think this particular one was in conjunction. They officially called it a Doctor Who Lockdown Original because it was original material that was released alongside, and sort of officialized it. But this is the Castellan's return, and this is the actor that played the Castellan in both the Five Doctors and Arc of Infinity, and this was released at the same time that one of the groups was doing the Five Doctor rewatch. And I wish I could remember which group orchestrated that, but But this ended up being one of the official webcasts for that, and was released in conjunction with that, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's another one of these kind of fun, clever meta. The doctor's in another, or not the doctor, the Castellan's in another incarnation, and they bring in the time scoop, and he gets trapped in the time scoop. It's almost a justifiable release of the Castellan, or a capture of the Castellan, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And bonus points for using the real time scoop.
Yes, the time scoop from the non-special edition. But yeah, this is what it is, and I'm very glad that they've included this in the quasi-canonicity of the Lockdown series. Anyway, so
yeah.
Next up, I think this was come out just about the same time that Dalek came out, and was written by Andrew Ireland, and this was Sven and the Scarf. And Sven has received a package that's going into the vault of help me with the guy's name.
Van Statten.
Thank you, Van Statten's vault. And when he opens this thing up and reveals that it's the Fourth Doctor scarf. I mean, there's no getting around it. It's the Fourth Doctor scarf, and just all of the little referential things of the evidence that he pulls off of each one, I thought was so much fun. Playing a little, tongue in cheek with it, being a bit meta with it, especially referring to the one specimen being possibly the scanner scales of a or extraterrestrial being, or maybe bubble wrap. Little things like that I thought were very clever. All of the different things that he pulls out, the detonator wires, using, do I have the right, just the dropping little lines from each story.
Yeah.
The one that I had to kind of go back and figure out, and I eventually figured it must have been from the Zygons, was the spongy pizza looking stuff. It did click with me what the reference there was until I went back and I rewound it and watched again, and that's the only thing I can think that would have been referenced to was the Zygons. Is that what you guys got out of it?
That's what the wiki references to.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
I was the same way. I had to watch it twice before I went, oh, yeah.
Well, because I think everything else was relatively obvious. Even the silicone-based life form. He drops Eldred must live. But even before that, he says perhaps it came from a knuckle. And my first thought was, okay, well, we're referencing the hand, so the hand of fear. And
ironically, I just saw that one on Pluto the night before.
Oh, is that right?
That happened to be the one that was on.
The alien cactus spine.
Cactus.
Yeah. And then there was a bit of a pun in there with Megalos.
It was almost a Megalos.
Yep. And then the Jelly Baby, which I just thought was brilliant. That was cool. That was a neat little referential one, especially for us, those of us that are especially Fourth Doctor fans.
A really fun one.
I am now very, very, very upset that we got Adam and not Sven in the episode. I'm ready for a whole, as important as Ingrid Oliver is. I now want Sven to be a scientific advisor to somebody, and I know he gets melted. But
I was about to say, I don't think he
doesn't last very long.
I don't think he survived the attack on the base.
I don't care. He doesn't even make it to Adam. Adam says my predecessor got incinerated or something. I want something with Sven now. Make it happen.
Well, at least we got this. So the next little bit, which and I actually, when I saw this, I thought, oh, this is going to be really cool. Kind of an alternative script extract. What could have Robert Sherman possibly been thinking in, because even when this wasn't set up to me, when I first saw that, when this first dropped, it wasn't set up to me that this was like that they had, I didn't even read Emily's thing about, they had toyed with the idea of not having the Daleks and substituting something else. And so I didn't even see that setup.
No, I didn't.
And
even
I might have been suspicious about it. So I started reading it. And when I read the first one, I was going, what? Why would there be a reference to the Tartan Wood Beast? Why would you even use that? And then when I got to the next page and he's put the Merca in, and then
Best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and then when we get to the end and it's the Drashig, I went, okay. Well, I was onto it by the time I saw the Merca, because everything is word for word except for the few little tweaks where they've changed Dalek to Merca, and in the other little nods beyond that. The Jurassic being when the description of the casing opening up and inside revealing a puppeteer's hand.
Now let's be honest here. Sherman has crafted hands down the single greatest Doctor Who episode ever that did not get made. This is a travesty. With the Merca, we have to rectify this immediately. Who do we need to contact? Because this is I'm beside myself with anger. And I have a picket sign. As soon as they let me out of my house, I already made it, and I'm going to go march on the BBC and demand that they CGI in the Merca in place of that stupid Dalek for that episode. And while they're at it, they can get rid of Adam and put Sven in.
I would fix the entire thing.
It would.
It would.
I got goosebumps reading as everybody aimed and the Merca did not seem phased by their bullets, and then it struck a karate pose. So we've covered worst villains and monsters in Doctor Who. How did we miss the Tartan Wood Beast?
I don't think we focused on that when we reviewed that story.
Had we not reviewed that story? Because
no, it's Androids.
It's Androids of Tara.
Yeah, Androids of Tara.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I read it. I read the thing, and of course, my first thought was Flash Gordon. the thing in the stump that they had to. The Wood Beast, right?
No, these were the ape things that lived in the woods.
Well, you say that. I had to go and look up what is the Tarn Wood Beast, and then I saw a picture of a Tarn Wood Beast. How did we not vote that as the worst creature ever in the history of Doctor Who? It is apparently so horrible. I do not remember it at all.
Really?
I do not remember it from Androids of Tara at all.
You know, the crazy thing is it's never bothered me. I actually thought it was. I mean, it's a bad sculpt.
Maybe it's just a bad picture.
I remember it having big giant teeth or something. But I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
we don't see it. We don't see it much either. It's not. I mean, it's not the focus of that episode hardly at all. I think it tries to attack Romana at one point.
Keith's showing pictures, and it's like maybe it's just a bad picture.
Here's a classic creatures of Doctor Who television series: the Tyrant of Wood Beast teddy bear.
There's a teddy bear?
I think it's fake.
Oh, darn.
It's one of those fake things.
Because I want one. I would put it on the shelf here next to my Merca.
We may have to
thing.
God, it's hideous.
Even worse when it's not in the set.
Well, I think that's just it. That's like a publicity. That's not even a publicity. So that's like a behind the scenes still. You can't.
Well,
you can't,
the still of it in the episode.
No,
go back to the still of it in the episode where it's attacked. Yeah. See, I mean,
I mean, I'm a little more free. That to me, that's Doctor Who monsters, though. And I think if it had been a focus of the episodes, then it probably would have been an issue for me. But it's not even really a focus of the issue of the episodes, so it's a bit of a one-off. It's bad. Don't get me wrong; it's bad, but it's.
I'm just surprised that it apparently didn't stick up in here. So I was pleased to see that somebody tweeted Roger Sherman or Robert Sherman and asked him, "So what? Candyman was unavailable."
Well, let's move on to the next one, which this one came out with Girl in the Fireplace, from the rewatch for that one. And I don't even know how to describe this. This was
It's
really, really well done.
quasi sequel.
Yeah. I mean,
it is a sequel. Period.
it definitely is a sequel, and I mean, it's really set up really kind of cool of getting the. I almost wondered, was this from the time between the last time that the Doctor, basically banishes the clockworks, and then he returns, in just moments later for him, but obviously years later for her when she's already dead. I wondered if this was some of that dialogue, and I think it is some of that dialogue that was happening between those 2 points. And I sort of assumed this is maybe a diary or something from her. And but I was also a little curious why we kept having these, like, weird change between shots of Versailles and in the palace and all these different things, some clips from the particular episode in the time period, and but cutting back and forth with these weird, like, computer weird shots, and even shots of what I identified even early on as the ship. Um, Kind of setting you off wondering what is going on here, only to reveal that this was obviously successful brain scans that they had captured, and it's almost this moment of what do they call that, singularity, where they put her mind and essence in the computer system, which I thought was really cool. I was really well done.
Yeah, I agree. Such a cool reveal when it's why she can't hear anybody's voice but her own.
Mm-hmm. And chilling at the same time,
Mhm.
because she's obviously she obviously has consciousness, and it's not the Madame de Pompadour that we know and love. It's for lack of a better word, it's a consciousness that's been taken from her and almost become sentient itself. And it's almost sad that she's part of this. She's the ship wandering in space now, and a forgotten, almost overlooked essence that was left behind. And it's kind of sad that, I mean, the SS Madame de Pompadour is out there in space wandering and still has
Drifting.
this consciousness. Yeah, drifting with this
Yeah.
consciousness.
It's
Bit sad.
It's a great big screw you, Stephen Moffat.
Written by
Because
Stephen
Written
Moffat.
by himself.
I had just about gotten over Girl in the Fireplace. It's taken me a while. About what is it now? 15 years.
He ripped your heart out again.
But I was done. I had taken that DVD off the shelf and put it way up high in the cupboard, and it's in a box. But it's in the back of the closet, and I was okay with it being there, and it stayed there, and I was done with it. And now you come along and you pull poor old Pompadour lady off the shelf, and you give her dialogue like, my lonely angel, and why I have these horrible dreams that you say they completed a scan of my brain, and I'm worried that maybe I'm in a computer somewhere, and why can't I feel myself breathing? You stuck her brain in the ship, you sadist. Oh my God, she is on that thing all alone. It is the AI of that computer has a copy of her brain, and she is stuck for all eternity on that ship.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
This is why Stephen Moffat is the ultimate troll.
I know. So here I was. You asked about the third cry.
Oh.
Lockdown cry.
Yeah, I didn't cry about this one.
Oh,
I didn't cry on this one.
I
I felt genuinely sad for the consciousness that was left behind, but I didn't cry. But
no, it put Sophia Miles on screen, and yeah, So I took her down off the shelf and I put her in the freezer. Maybe that way she'll stay quiet.
Up next, another meta-referential story, the Zygon Isolation, which just really simply shows us a image of ourselves in Doctor Who with what we're doing right now, which is basically video conferencing with each other. The two Osgoods video conferencing with each other, with the Doctor occasionally listening into to their call. So,
okay, so I have to point out the absolute best thing about this is there's two video screens. There's an Osgood and there's an Osgood, and then over on the side is the names. There's Osgood, and then up to the side it says host.
Very clever name. Very clever reference.
It's just, for some reason, that to me was the funniest. I couldn't focus on the rest of the episode because I just kept seeing host, and I would start laughing because there's an Osgood host and there's an Osgood, and it's like, well, we're not sure which one's which.
Oh, I don't know. I think this is the very first time since we've had dueling Osgoods that it was very obvious which was which. Especially when the one Osgood says, "Oh, well, that was sort of tell." She missed her what was it she called, suckery pieces or whatever. I don't know what she called them.
Feel the sun on my suctioning things again.
Yeah, suctiony things. But again, another kind of meta outer referential one, because what are they going to do while they're bored? They're going to watch Day of the Doctor together because they're in it. So it was a little bit too skirted the real world, but it was fun. It was a neat little send off on that.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Anytime you have Ingrid Oliver is a good time.
That's right. That's right. And that brought us up to what up until this point was because the next one is tomorrow, right? Yeah. So which has been the last, which was the Zygon Invasion and Zygon Inversion. Truth or Consequences. That was on the 10th of May. The next one up, which everybody can, if I get this out in time, can join in, is Volcano Day with the Fires of Pompeii. Is that actually Volcano Day? Did they really manage to sync that up?
Volcano Day.
Well, that's too bad. I usually
Do
have
we
that
know
on my
when
phone.
Volcano Day?
Yeah, I have it in my phone.
Really?
Yep. But it's not showing up, so it must not be.
Like we know
Volcano
when Volcano Day
Day
happened?
is Saturday, October 24th this year. No, that was last year. It's Monday, October 24th this year.
Probably not tomorrow.
No, that's definitely not tomorrow. Not
On
October.
the right.
I'm sorry, August. I said October. It's August. August 24th.
Probably not tomorrow.
No, definitely not tomorrow. But
on the bright side, Glenn, you have plenty of time to edit this.
That's right. But that's actually happening tomorrow, the tweet along, so it's going to be close. But they have released another one this week on the 11th. They dropped a story. Actually, yeah, it's a story treatment called the How the Monk Got His Habit. Was written by Peter Harness, who also wrote the last story that we just reviewed, and it was weird nonetheless. He claims that there was a novelization for this, and that it was an unproduced 12th Doctor TV story. And actually, it was an unproduced story that he decided to novelize, and then this is like the first page, but it didn't go any further than this. I think it's a bit tongue in cheek. I don't think this is actually real. I think it's something fun that he put together. But it's the monk who now goes by the name Roger. I don't know. You know where that reference is from? Does anybody know? He hasn't gone by Roger before, has he?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Anyway, and I got the impression that this is a prequel to the story, the meddling monk, or not the meddling monk, the time meddler.
That's the impression I got from the story too.
Okay, all right.
But the monk is in his 5th incarnation, so
yeah. Okay. So, and listening to music, and his TARDIS doesn't want to jettison 25% so that the of the ship, so that he can get the right audio resolution. It decides to tell him he just needs to plug in a woofer, and so he does so and saves 25% of his TARDIS. Did I sum it up?
Yeah.
Kind of stinks ending on this one
And then
because
he's
it
gonna go
was really the most
visit
lackluster of all of the
Rasputin.
pieces.
The key to this was the casting. That he kept saying that he envisioned Matt Berry playing Roger the Monk, and I read this and I had no idea who Matt
Oh,
Berry was.
okay.
So then I get into the comments section on Twitter, and everybody's going, "Oh my God, somebody called Big Finish. We have to make this happen." Blah blah blah. Everybody's on board with this, and I'm like, "Who the heck is this Matt Berry guy?" So I go and I look up Matt Berry. Oh, Matt Berry's the guy from What We Do in the Shadows who plays the one vampire, the married one.
Okay.
With the beard and the...
It's the guy from IT Crowd.
Yes. Now, knowing that, hearing this dialogue coming out of that guy is like, okay, this is now on a whole nother level of... Yeah. Okay, now I get it.
and I haven't watched What We Do in the Shadows, because this is from the TV series What We Do in the Shadows, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He plays the character on there. The funny thing is, I can easily, which I think he plays the same character that Jermaine Clement played in the movie, right?
He's similar, but not
similar
the same.
character. Okay, because interestingly enough, I envisioned Jermaine Clement when I was reading this. So that's pretty crazy that both of these guys were linked in such a way. That's bizarre. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's completely who I pictured when I was reading that. Although I tend to picture Jermaine Clement in a lot of different things of that style of character. So, anyway.
But yeah, having read that little tidbit ahead of time, but not knowing who it was, and then putting that piece in afterwards, then all of a sudden it was like click, and the heavens opened. Oh, yes, now I want this as much as everybody else wants this.
Wow.
Just to hear him talk about hi-fi and yelling at a TARDIS, that.
Well, let's wrap this up, because this is going to be a supersized episode now, because I think we've run about 2 hours. But that's the way to bring it back, right? I mean, we bring the show back with a supersized episode. We do want to remind everybody that these aren't over. They're continuing to go, as we said, on the 17th. If we get this out on time, it'll be the day after we record this. They're going to be doing the Fires of Pompeii. You get 2 doctors for the price of one there, at least 2 actors for the price of one there. So that's coming up. And obviously we're sticking around. Sean, you want to give a little brief, maybe what people can expect? I don't know that we're going to set a date today, but we are starting to get back into the swing of these things, and we want to do more of these. So what do we have that people can look forward to?
Well, coming up on the schedule unofficially, dun dun dun. We had commented before we went and took our hiatus that we were going to be coming back with a return to the Lethbridge Stewart verse, or the Brigverse, and getting back into some shorts. I don't remember the name of the book. I had it right.
Havoc Files.
Havoc Files. Yeah, it's the Laughing
Lord. The Laughing Gnome, with some of the short stories in the book, followed by...
Did you short circuit?
I did. My whole brain has just shut down. It's
I could have edited that out. Now I can't, because I've referenced it.
What would you want to, really? I mean, if we're going to get back into this, we should just... Let's be honest.
True to us.
If we changed it up, we would confuse people. So, and then following that up is the next book in the Lethbridge Stewart series. Which, man, why do I not have this in front of me? I totally thought I did.
The Rise of the Dominators.
Thank you.
Dominator, right?
Rise of the Dominator.
Yeah. Just one.
Just one.
Singular. There is only one Dominator.
And then obviously we've got some War Doctor that we're going to be doing.
Wait, no, is it Rise? Yes, it is Rise of the Dominator.
Yeah, Rise
okay, there. I found it. It just rolled right off my. It did this weird thing. It was very, very, very Doctor Who-y, actually. It was kind of weird.
And we've got some War Doctor out ahead as well.
Some War Doctor coming up. Some other Big Finish. Some Lucy Wilson coming up. So yes, and we'll come back and continue to revisit the worlds of Lockdown as they continue to provide them to us. And I don't know, maybe if I can squeeze 2 nickels worth of time together, I can get inspired to offer up a little something from us to you guys for that as well. So
yeah, and we're sure enjoying the Star Trek side trips that you've been doing. I've actually seen some comments on those. People are enjoying those as well, Sean. So thank you for doing those. I also I sort of thought maybe I would continue my Doctor Who comics read along in the same form. So I may be doing some short trips or some side trips on the Doctor Who First Doctor comics that I'm doing now as well. So look for those in the coming weeks as well. Anything else we need to address before we close the show out, guys?
Thank you for continuing to stick around with us.
All right. Very good. Well, be sure to check out the website and keep up to date for everything we're doing on the podcast. While you're there, click on our Patreon link and consider supporting us. And for those of you that are already supporting us, we appreciate it. We know we haven't given you much for your buck, but hopefully we'll start to make up for it here very soon. And remember, you can send any comments or feedback to travelingvortex.com by clicking on the send feedback link on the website. And that's all we've got time for. So until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you from 6 feet away.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.